Okay, first time with a not a handheld mic. I like this. My name is Jennifer Gamache, and I'm so excited that you came out to hear about Safe Families tonight. I am very passionate about Safe Families. You'll hear a little bit about why, but basically, Safe Families' goal is to keep kids safe and families together. So, the way that I got involved with Safe Families is I am a teacher by trade. I have taught most of my life. But I always knew that God had given me a story, a beginning, that I always felt like had a greater purpose. And so, as I was teaching all these years, 2 years ago, I felt God nudging my heart. And He was saying to me, there's something else coming for you. And it was so strong. And I talked to my husband about it. And it was so strong, I went to the principal and said, I know this doesn't make any sense, but I'm going to give up my teaching job. I'm going to be a teacher on call because I want to be ready for something that God has prepared for me. And so he said, okay, I can't argue with that. It was a Christian school and blessed me to do that. So I thought maybe it would be a month or so and God would provide this big opportunity that I thought was coming. Well, it was 2 years. So for 2 years, I was a teacher on call, didn't apply for one job in that time, didn't feel anything. It was just a preparing in my heart for what was coming. And I just had a peace about it. During that time, my husband and I, we have 3 grown kids, and we were looking into doing foster care. And so we were going down that road of the application and the interviews. And we were hitting a few roadblocks and kind of praying about it and thinking about it when somebody posted about Safe Families. And I was like, what is Safe Families? So I looked into it a little bit and I said to my husband, Jeff, this is what we need to do. This is a Christian organization. It's temporary. The goal is to keep families together. We were just getting so excited. I'm like, this is what we need to do. The next day, a job posting was posted. And I had goosebumps. I just knew. I said to him right there, I'm like, this is the job. And the rest is history. Here I am. And so I'm very, very passionate about safe families. I was adopted as a child into a 2-parent family. I should say before this is Safe Families deals with temporary crisis. So we come in during a crisis to support families. And so when I was adopted into a 2-parent family, everything's going great. And then my dad left when I was 3.5. But he didn't just leave me, he left my mom and I, my mom who had a degenerative disease, and so left me with the responsibility of caring for her. And immediately, we were in a crisis. My mom didn't drive, we didn't have other family around, she's now a single mom, she's having trouble walking. Like, it was an immediate crisis. And what changed there, the reason that I'm standing in front of you tonight is because of someone in the church. Someone in the church, we were not a believing family, we knew nothing about Christianity, and someone from the church stepped out and invited us to come with them one Sunday. Somehow they probably heard about this poor mom and child, and wanted to do just like this, wanted to reach out to help, and somebody did, and that changed the trajectory of my life. I literally would not be standing here if it wasn't for that one simple act of inviting us to go to church. As my mom's health got increasingly worse, different people of the church kind of started coming in. So my mom didn't drive. Somebody every Sunday picked us up for church. My mom became a Christian. I became a Christian. Someone from the church came every Wednesday, took us grocery shopping. How would we have gotten groceries? She couldn't drive. I couldn't. I was 5. There was somebody who would come clean our house. When my mom had to go into the hospital, somebody would care for me at their home for a weekend or a week at a time. When I look back now, my mom and I should never have stayed together. There was way too much responsibility on myself and no support. I should have been put into foster care and my mom would have spent her years alone. But it wasn't like that. I love this quote that says, our fingerprints don't fade from the lives that we touch. And I can stand here today and say, I have fingerprints of different people over my life for the past 40 years. And these fingerprints, when you think of fingerprints, if you have children or you like clean windows and you see fingerprints all over, they don't come off easily. But what I love about the analogy of fingerprints on lives not coming off is you don't know what these little seeds that have been planted are actually going to grow into. And when I stand here, it has not only affected me, it's affected my kids and the generations to follow. I have 3 grown kids who are following the Lord. My mom, which you'll hear a little bit later, she lived till 2012. She got to see her daughter get married, her grandkids grow up, even though she spent 30 years in a care facility because of her health condition. What is Safe Families? Safe Families Canada creates extended family-like support for desperate families through a community of devoted volunteers. By the way, our volunteers are amazing. I am so blessed and encouraged by our volunteers. Our volunteers are motivated by the compassionate faith to keep children safe and families together. The Word of God tells us that God is a defender of the poor and fatherless. How does He do this? He uses people like you and me. Just like when I think back on my story, these were not huge things that people were doing. These were a lot of people who had compassion, who acted on small acts that made a huge difference. Our core values at Safe Families are radical hospitality, which is welcoming a stranger into our home. Sometimes, if I go back to the fingerprint analogy, fingerprints are dirty. Like you put it in, mud, or you're in something sticky and it goes all over. Sometimes when we welcome the stranger in, sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it's inconvenient, and sometimes, it doesn't fit into what we think things are going to look like. But just because it's messy or it's dirty or it's inconvenient doesn't mean that we don't continue to follow the call that we've been given. So radical hospitality would be welcoming a stranger into our home. Disruptive generosity is using not only our time, but our talents, our resources, being generous with what we have. And sometimes it's like, my life is my life. But being disruptive, using disruptive generosity, when we think of reaching out and sharing what we have with others, whether it's our time or our talents or our resources or our funds, that God really uses that. Like what we've been given, I believe, is to help others and to share and to give as well. And the last core value is compassion fueled by mercy. Sometimes we see areas that need help, or we feel badly for someone, or our heart aches for somebody. And that is wonderful. But the part that's fueled by mercy is, are we going to walk that out? Are we going to do something about it rather than just, feel sad or upset about something? It's putting steps to walking forward. So those are Safe Families' core values: radical hospitality, disruptive generosity, and compassion fueled by mercy. I'll just give you a little bit of history of Safe Families. So Safe Families started in the States back in 2003, and it came to Canada in 2012. So it's been around for a long time. Our national office is in Ontario with quite a few chapters there, and we have chapters across Canada, and this is our first BC one. So we started in the summer. So right now is how we're trying to spread word. We are getting churches to partner with us. We're getting our volunteers set. And the number of referrals that we have come in already, we're already in certain cities being like, okay, we need more volunteers. Like, the need is so, so great. And in Maclean's magazine, it names Safe Families Canada in the top 50 fastest growing charities in Canada in 2023. So in one way, we feel really blessed that churches are getting on board, Christians are being challenged to reach out into their communities, and it's growing quickly. But the sad part of being a statistic like that is that there's so much need to meet that. So we have 16 chapters currently across Canada, and there's 9 more developing right now. There's one starting up in the Okanagan in BC, which will be the second one here in the province. This is an analogy that we like to use to decipher foster care and safe families. So we use this example. If a vehicle went off the cliff and it crashed at the bottom, that's the ministry's being involved. The crisis has already happened and they're reacting to it. Safe Families tries to build the fence at the top and be more proactive so that we can step in, surround families with the support that they need, like extended family, so that they don't go off the cliff. So we try to prevent kids from going into foster care. We try and support families before things go off the rails. So we at Safe Families are more proactive, and foster care is more reacting to it. Children in a family traumatized by crisis become especially at risk for abuse or neglect, as well as conflict with the law. Safe Families, these are some instances that we help with: addiction, homelessness, mental illness, financial instability, immigration, domestic violence, incarceration, and illness. Families are seeming to crumble around us. Safe Families Canada has a Jesus-centered vision, creating a world where children are safe and families are transformed. So I think it's no secret when we look around, the breakdown of the family is having so many different ripple effects. Many, if not most, of the families that come into our program have not one person to call when crisis strikes. So if something happened in my family, I feel like I would have meals at the door. I would have somebody watching my kids. I could have somebody, coming and helping solve the problem. These people, many of them, have not one person to call. It's hard to understand. I feel like in the church, we know what community looks like or could look like, and these people often have no framework for that. An example would be, we had a mom come into our program, a single mom. She had 2 kids and she was going in for a C-section. She was taking a cab to go have her baby. She had not one person to even drive her to the hospital, let alone what was she going to do with her 2 children. She was so concerned and so worried about her kids. That is an immediate crisis where Safe Families can walk in and say, we can help you. We could provide a family friend that is going to drive you to and from the hospital. We had a wonderful volunteer, take the two kids and host them for 2 days before the baby was born, 5 days after. The mom could introduce the kids to the host family. Like, we're trying to avoid any sort of traumatic situation. We're trying to keep families together. When the kids were with the host family, they would FaceTime the mom. They would bring them to see the baby. And then after the hosting was done, we bring the family back together. But it could look a lot different. It could look like a mom going into the hospital with no one to watch her kids, and the kids are immediately, social workers called, they're taken into the system. We have a social worker who works at Langley Hospital, and she said, I could refer you so many families where a mom will come in for emergency surgery, and you have your 3 little kids here, and there's no one to call. They have to call the ministry. They go into foster care. 44% of kids that go into foster care never return home. And sometimes all it takes is somebody to come alongside them during that time of struggle. We're going to just play this, rather than me give you a few statistics, we're just going to play this little video. And what I love about it is the words to the song. Often in the song, it talks about, I don't know what I would do. I feel like I'm falling off the edge. And when I heard those words initially, it was that, this falling off literal cliff and trying to protect them up at the top. So listen to the words and take in some of these statistics.
I've seen love come and I've seen love walk away. So many questions, will anybody stay? It's been a hard year, so many nights and tears, all of the darkness, trying to fight my fears. Alone, so long, alone. I've started breathing, the weight is lifted. Here with you it's easy, my head is finally clear. There's nothing missing when you are by my side. I took the long road, but now I realize I'm home with you. I'm home. I don't know who I'd be if I didn't know you would probably fall off the edge. I don't know where I'd go if you ever let go, so keep me held in your hands. I don't know who I'd be if I didn't know you. I'd probably fall off the edge. I don't know where I'd go if you ever let go, so keep me held in your hands. You're my safe place, my hideaway. You're my anchor, my saving grace. You're my constant, my steadiness. You're my shelter, my oxygen. I don't know who I'd be if I didn't know you. Thank God I do. I don't know who I'd be if I didn't know you. Would probably fall off the edge. I don't know where I'd go if you ever let go, so keep me out in your hands. I don't know who I'd be if I didn't know you. Thank God I do.
And so a lot of those statistics are really scary and discouraging, and we're just trying to make a difference for kids to keep them safe and to keep families together. Some situations right now in our program where we have some refugee families. You have a family of 6 living in a 2-bedroom apartment. One of the children has cancer. They need drives to Vancouver, struggling for employment. Like these are good parents who love their kids that need support. And so coming alongside them to allow them to parent, to allow them to grow. And we have a young mom who was the first person in her family to ever graduate high school. And she's working towards getting her medical assistance, but she has 2 young kids. She's overwhelmed, she's struggling, and we're coming alongside her to say, you can do this. This is going to make a difference for your family. We're cheering her on until she can graduate by helping her, standing beside her, helping with her kids, help with food, different resources, things like that. So it's just coming alongside can make a huge difference. So our first objective at Safe Families is family support and stabilization. Many parents struggle because of limited informal social supports and unavailable extended family. Many host families become the extended family that a parent never had, as does the local church congregation. Safe Families provides a chance for parents to get back on their feet before abuse or neglect can occur. And what I love about this is a lot of the volunteers and families that are meeting our families and helping them, they are becoming like extended like family, like the aunt that you could call if something happened, or somebody's sick and could you pick this up for me? Like long after Safe Families leaves, the church and the relationship built in those relationships stay. Child welfare deflection, which I've talked about before, it's a preventative measure, so we're trying to reduce the number of children who are entering the system. Our host families are vetted like foster families are. They go through the same home study training, well, it's Safe Families training, but it's very well vetted, similar to the foster care system. The difference is that it's temporary, it's not ongoing. So when a family comes in and needs hosting for their kids, there's goals set, parents are working towards goals, and there is a estimated timeline. So usually for a hosting, it would be between 1 night and 3 months. That's kind of sometimes they go longer, but that's kind of the goal, temporary. And the third one is child abuse prevention. Providing an overwhelmed and resource-limited parent with a safe temporary place for their child without threat of losing custody can avert potential abuse neglect episodes. Safe Families gives parents a moment to catch their breath and stabilize in the middle of a crisis. Sometimes that's enough to prevent a great tragedy and keeping kids safe. The fourth one, which I love, and I've loved presenting at different churches and love seeing people get involved, is strengthening compassion ministries in the church. Participation in Safe Families provides churches with the opportunity to apply the Lord's command to care for families. Some call it a movement of compassion, while others respond to the idea of returning to biblical hospitality. In Greek, hospitality is known as the love of a stranger. Both concepts are embodied in the acts of loving a child, mentoring a parent, or supporting the movement with goods and services. So here we want to just show you some of the differences between Safe Families and the foster care system. What I've already explained is one is proactive and one is reactive. For foster families, families are actually losing custody, but with Safe Families, they're volunteering to place their child in your home because they want to get better. An example would be a mom who is needing to go to rehab. Often parents don't get the help they need because they're worried they're going to lose their kids. And then that spirals and kids become unsafe. But with Safe Families, they keep custody of their child. So a mom can go into rehab for 3 months, knowing that she has relationship with her kids. We're doing the best to keep that connection. We're not trying to separate them. But the mom can get better and we can reunite them knowing that their child was placed in a loving Christian home while she got better. So one is they lose custody, one they do not lose custody. One is voluntary and one is non-voluntary. Foster family receives a stipend. Our host families do it out of the love that they want to serve in this way. So there's no financial stipend, which has been very interesting to me. So many people, families that are referred, come in and they say, "Why are you doing this? Why are you helping me?" And it opens such a door for a conversation. Why are we doing this? We love Jesus. We have been loved, and this is our outpouring. We want to serve, and it just brings so many wonderful conversations about why we're doing it. The next one is the courts are involved in determining the child's status in foster families, whereas our goal is always to return to the placing family where possible. And I found this one quite interesting. Every child in foster care costs approximately $45,000 a year. And with Safe Families, a placement costs $1,200 because we're dealing with short term and we are using volunteers in the church. These are some places where our referrals currently are coming from. Our number one referral source across Canada is the ministry, which is unique to me in that they know that we're an unapologetically Christian organization, and yet they still want us involved. They see that there's a gap, that there is an area where kids don't need to be going to the ministry. And so they welcome our help, and we build good, trustworthy relationships there. So our referrals come from refugee centers, social workers, homeless shelters, schools, domestic violence shelters, churches, pregnancy centers, child welfare agencies, hospitals, schools, and also individuals can refer themselves as well. Often we think of Safe Families as host families is the main part of Safe Families, but actually there's 4 different roles that people can volunteer with. And I love that. All of us have different capacities at different times in our lives. And so our motto kind of with Safe Families is that everyone can do something. And all of those little somethings are what brought me to standing here to you today. One of the first roles is to become a family friend. A family friend is a volunteer who is just that. It's a friend. It could mean checking in on somebody, calling them, going for a walk, talking to them at the park while their child plays. Sometimes they just want that conversation. A family friend could also involve babysitting or driving to the hospital or dropping a meal off. Anything that, when you think of a friend, that is what you could encourage, listen, help, support, or advocate. So that is one of our volunteer roles that you could sign up for. Another one is to become a family coach. A family coach is somebody who will walk alongside, it could be a parent, where you're helping them with parenting strategies, where they're so overwhelmed with maybe the behaviors, or I don't know how to parent, because often our families are coming out where they haven't had healthy relationships to watch. They have no idea. They're not trying to, what they would term, I'm making a mess of things. They just don't know better. They've never been taught and they've never been modeled. So often a family coach will come alongside, and if it's like, I really love parenting, or I'm good with numbers, I'm good with accounting, we would match you up. If somebody needs help filling out their taxes, somebody needs help with parenting. It's like a coach. You're helping to equip them in something they feel like they would need help in. The next one is a resource friend. So a resource could be goods or services. So a lot of people don't have the time, but maybe they have the financial resources or the ability. So it could be, maybe you're a mechanic, maybe you're a doctor, maybe we had a lawyer at our last info session that said, I would love to, if you get any cases where you need just some legal advice, I would love to step in. So it could be a role like that. We presented at a young adults group, and I was so blessed by this young 25-year-old guy that came up after the presentation and said, I'm a plumber. Do you think you could use a plumber? And I'm like, yes, we could use a plumber. And he said, any family that you come into your program that needs a plumber, I am there free of charge. I'm like, I could use a plumber, but no. But I was so blessed. Here's a 25-year-old saying, I can do something, right? We can all do something. So sometimes it is maybe not even your ability. Maybe it's like, I know a mechanic. I can help you find a lawyer. That's a resource friend. Resource friends also supply goods. So we have many single moms in our program who don't have enough formula, diapers, food. We had one family who really needed protein in their diet but was getting no meat at all. We called one of our resource friends, said, hey, would this be something you'd be interested in? This family's not getting any protein into their diet. I'm on my way to Costco, and she brought chicken breasts, ground beef, dropped it off. She was already at Costco, maybe cost her $50, gave it to the family, and that made a huge difference. Or it could be, during this cold storm, we had some refugee families who did not have winter coats or boots or prepared for this cold snap. And we could call someone and say, hey, would you be able to pick up a size 4 pair of boots? Absolutely. You could go to Walmart, pick up boots, drop them off. It seems like a little thing, but it makes a huge difference for a family that actually can't get the pair of boots for their child. So a resource friend is providing goods or services. The last one, which we've kind of touched on a little bit, are host families. These are, they provide stability, safety, relief, housing, and love. And so when a placing family is giving over their child temporarily, they have the confidence to know that we have screened well our volunteers, that these families are welcoming them in, loving these kids, while it gives the parent time to get back on their feet. Some of the examples I've already mentioned, maybe they're going to rehab, maybe they're going in for surgery and they have nobody to watch their kids. Maybe the parents are so completely overwhelmed and anxiety is taking over their life and they need a few days to themselves because the kids are becoming unsafe. The parent is not a harmful parent, but they're very overwhelmed. And so we can provide hosting temporarily while the parents are working on goals to get themselves healthy, before bringing them back together. So those are our four roles. So in my life, when my mom was sick, I had all of these people step in. And the really interesting thing is, I don't think I could name one of them now. And these people stuck with us for a lot of years. My mom, she was told that she had multiple sclerosis, but it was actually it's called neurofibromatosis. It's a brain and spinal tumor. So she was presenting with the same symptoms of MS while the brain tumor was getting larger. So she went from walking with a cane to a walker to a wheelchair. When they originally, when I was at camp one year, I came home and she'd had a seizure, went down to Toronto to figure out what was going on, and realized it wasn't MS. It was actually this massive brain tumor, and they gave her like a 2% chance of living. That was when I was 11 years old. From 0 to 11, people stepped in. I had people tutoring me in the hospital cafeteria. I had people paying for me to go for a week of camp. And when you carry the responsibility of caring for an adult at that young of an age, a week of camp is freedom. It was like you live with this, carrying around this heavy luggage, and all of a sudden someone starts taking it off, right? Coming home from school and finding that my mom had fallen down the stairs and she couldn't get up and she's bleeding on her head, and I'm not strong enough to lift her up. That's a lot for a child. My adult mind can look back and see it realistically, but that little child is like, I couldn't do it. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't strong enough. And that weight is what we want to take off kids. We want to come in and help and support so that the child doesn't. I remember one instance standing out in Ontario at the bus stop, and it was a snow day, but I didn't know it was a snow day. And everyone else did, and I stood there and I debated to myself, do I walk to school or do I go back in the house? And I walked to school, and it just makes me want to cry because there was so much. I would rather have walked, and it was quite a distance. I would rather have done that than to feel the pressure of the responsibility of being in the home. It's sad. I have such mixed emotions of it because I can see it as an adult now, but I interpret it as the child back then. You'll hear it on the video. I won't explain that now. But anyway, so these are some of the roles where people would coach me. Somebody from our church actually came and taught me piano on a little thing. Like, they just kind of took my mom and I under our wings, and yet I don't remember one person's name, and yet I stand here because of them. And so I just love the illustration of fingerprints. And so when we watch this video, I'll say a little bit more about it after, but it just gives you a sense of how little things can make a big difference and how everyone can do something. I think that my heart for the vulnerable started when I was vulnerable. I was adopted as a baby into a two-parent family, and my dad left when I was 3. My first memory is my dad leaving, clinging to his leg. Most kids do that for fun, but for me, I was clinging to his leg because I knew when he walked out that door, my life was about to change. As my dad left, he didn't just leave my mom and I. He left my mom, who was diagnosed with a degenerative disease, and he left me in many ways with that responsibility of caring for her. I felt like when my dad left, there was a sense of insecurity, a sense of having to make everything better. I felt responsible. And so at 3 years old, to have that sense of abandonment and being left behind and being left responsible, I feel like it changed who I was. And yet it also gave me a sense, when I look back, that I have such compassion and empathy for kids in a similar situation. My mom's life, she is an amazing woman. She really is. She lived until 2012. She lived for 30 years in a hospital or care type facility. She was legally blind 100% deaf and bedridden. Communication was very hard the more ill that she became. It got to the point where we used a board. She would, with her limited fine motor skills, she would point to letters, spell out words to try and make a sentence. It was very difficult to understand what she was saying. And so to watch someone that you love so much suffer for so long is really hard. What I find with families in crisis is we're not always seeing the full picture. For example, in this picture here, it's my mom and I, and we're having our picture taken, but what you're not seeing is just outside of this photo frame is my mom's walker. Her inability to walk, you wouldn't know. What you're not seeing in my eyes is maybe the fear or the tension or the sense of having to control everything. You're not seeing that. And so often what we need to do is we need to get to know people. We need to walk alongside them, journey life with them so that we can actually see what is really going on. I'm so passionate about Safe Families because their goal is to proactively help and support families by giving them a circle of community. Foster care responds to the abuse or crisis that has already happened, whereas Safe Families is building a community of support around the family, proactively trying to prevent the crisis from happening, keeping families together. When I was about 10, she was getting weaker and weaker, and there was somebody from our church that would come and sleep at our house. It provided such freedom for me. I don't feel like I had slept that well in years because I knew when my mom needed to get up in the night, it wasn't my responsibility. It's like this person taking that heavy piece of luggage off and I could sleep. I had homes to go to stay in at that time. My aunt would, when I'd come down to Toronto after knowing that she had survived the surgery, my aunt would meet me there and she would help me with my math homework, which seems like a seemingly little thing, but it was huge to me. I wanted to pass math and I was not able to do it without help. So I had people sit in the cafeteria and help me with my math homework. I had people drive me to see my mom. Like, we're talking years, every weekend, twice a week going to visit my mom. It's in many reasons why I have a passion right now for keeping families together, for keeping kids safe, to take that responsibility off children and help support the family so that they can be together. I'm so thankful that my mom and I could be together. People ask, why are you helping me? Why are you doing this? Everyone can do something, but why? It gives us an opportunity to say, why are we doing it? Because of Jesus. Jesus loved us. We want to love you. We want to help. We want to feed the hungry. We want to keep kids safe. We want to help in any way we can. And so if we all find something that each of us can do, what a great difference that's going to make. At Safe Families, we have opportunities where you can be a family friend. We can be a resource friend. You can be a family coach. And you can host a vulnerable child temporarily while a family gets back on their feet. I am so grateful that people took the time to just meet those seemingly little needs that were just so huge to me and my family, and it made a massive difference. By allowing kids to have a safe, nurturing environment, we're able to make a positive impact that influences them for the rest of their lives. So we really need churches and people to partner with us tangibly. We're looking for volunteers. We need finances to support the work of Safe Families. We need people's prayers for the families in crisis. And we would love to just surround people and families with the attributes of Jesus to make a difference in their lives. So I feel like I need a big whiteboard to describe my family because it's quite the story. It could be a movie. But one thing that I do want to highlight is when my mom became a Christian because somebody invited us to church and the church was supporting us, my mom set it in her heart that she was going to witness to my dad. And so for years, she would be telling my dad about God and about the difference it's made. And when I watch this and I talk about my dad leaving, I don't want to end tonight without saying that my dad came back. And he came back because someone reached out to my mom, and my mom witnessed to my dad, and my dad became a Christian, and his new wife became a Christian. And when my mom had the seizure when I was 11 and went in and had the surgery, she never ever came out of care again. But I had my dad to go to then. And my dad and his wife and myself have loved and supported my mom for 30 years that she lived in care. My dad and I would bring her to visit us for Christmas, for Mother's Day, for Thanksgiving. And this is no small task. And yet, God redeemed what started off as tragic. And so I would not want to end tonight without saying how God brought that together. And so all of these little pieces throughout my life, one other story I'll share with you because I just feel like it's unreal. And I feel like maybe Richard was an angel, but he left a major fingerprint on my mom and I's life. He was somebody that lived in our town. You know how you see somebody, you don't know who they are, but you see them everywhere. Well, Richard rode his bike everywhere. From all appearance sake, he looked like he was a homeless man. He had his bike. I kind of knew where he lived. It was a shack. It didn't have electricity, and he had 100 cats. And he would visit our neighbors. I don't remember what his last name was. I never remember him at my house. Only when my mom and I would go visit the neighbors. And I remember Richard would, every Easter or Christmas, he would give me a hard-covered book, which I still have, like a Beatrice Potter book or something like that. Well, fast forward how many years? I haven't seen him in probably 40 years, 30 years at the time. Don't know his last name. Don't remember much about him other than giving this book. And when my mom went into full-time care, and I was, as the years went on, preparing to go to university, we get a letter in the mail. And we've been left shares in Richard's will. And I'm thinking, oh, he left me his bike. Great. Like, I'm thinking, what would he have left me? Well, it turns out that Richard actually owned all the industrial land that this little shack was on. And this man, this angel, must have thought to himself, this mom and this young child are going to need help down the road. They are going to need help. And so not only did he left shares for my mom, and he left shares for me that we received 25 years after ever last seeing him. And those shares paid for my mom's care for 30 years. That money I would never have been able to afford going to university, let alone a Christian university, which I came out and went to Trinity. I would never have been able to do that. And so I share that story in the fact of like, all these people that touched my life, I don't really know them. I have no memory as a child, and yet it made such a huge, huge impact. And so I just want to encourage you, as I encourage myself, to step out and do what we can do. Everyone can do something. Everyone has a different capacity, and it makes a big difference. If you are interested in volunteering, this is what the process would look like, and we have cards and things here that you can pick up. You can go to our website, safefamilies.com, and you click on the button that says Better Impact, where you'll create a profile. You'll click on which volunteer role you are interested in. Then we'll send you an email. A staff will be in contact. There's some forms to sign, some training videos to watch, depending on your role. Criminal record check, and then we're kind of off to the races. And it's been such a blessing to get to know our volunteers. They've been amazing. I got the opportunity to drive one of our refugee moms and her child down to Children's Hospital last week. Drove down, spent the day, worked in the cafeteria, drove back. I left more blessed than she did. I was so touched by her story, her joy, the conversation. Like, I feel like I'm going in thinking I'm helping her, but I left feeling blessed. And I hear that time and time again from our volunteers. So I would love to encourage you to help by stepping into one of these roles if you want. If you want more information, I'm happy to talk to you. And I'm just really appreciative that you would take time out of your night tonight to come and hear about Safe Families. So there's a sign-up sheet here. It's not signing up to volunteer, but if we can send you our monthly newsletter or information just as a record of who's here tonight, you're welcome to sign that. There's brochures. Please take some snacks and coffee and tea over there. But just want to thank you so much for joining us tonight.